NSFW, what plotlines would we see in a dark Pixar universe? A Cars prequel where we learn what happened to all the humans. Monsters Incorporated, but they collect screams from kids they torture and kill. Inside out of a person with PTSD and a substance abuse problem. Toy Story, once the toys become landfill, they see that they have finally been thrown away and live in this trash heap. All the people who were left behind in Wall-E and had to survive it out. Lightning McQueen hits rock bottom after a major crash during a race and gets hooked on low-grade gasoline with fuel additives. Sid gets his own torturous Toy Story spin-off. Down, Carl spirals into depression after losing his wife and murdering Russell and travels into the underworld in his sinking house of despair. A Daredevil-style show in the world of The Incredibles. Old Prospector was totally banging Jessie before Woody came around. A Finding Nemo type film starring Dory, but she is a much more elderly fish now and her short-term memory loss has gradually worsened into severe dementia. Over the course of the film, Nemo helps her recollect the best memories of her life before she smiles and finally passes on. That lamp is the protagonist as a secret serial killer. Children being shot at with automatic weapons? Wait. Incredibles did it. Implied mass murder? It. Incredibles did that. 2. Human remains? Check. Main character is made to believe his whole family is dead? Check. The first Incredibles is by far the superior movie because it wasn't afraid to get dark and dangerous. Home follows the family of a boy whose father loses his job and then their house. They live in a motel for a while until they are eventually out on the streets. The entire story is told from the perspective of the boy as he is eventually the only one left in the end. Toy Story 2. But Jessie wasn't lost or outgrown by the daughter. Instead, she was the only witness to the child abuse and murder by a heavily alcoholic father to Emily. The plot revolves around somehow getting evidence to the police, with a major point being Jessie even able to talk about it. Imagine all the toys around the world that bear silent witness to the horrors of human life. Edit. Many thanks for the coin. Kind stranger. Wreck-It Ralph stars in a porn game. A war between humans and toys. I had a dream about that once and now I'm obsessed with the idea. Coco. But it's set during the apocalypse. So with nobody to remember them, everyone starts to fade away forever. More of a Disney one. But I came up with this idea with some friends a while ago. It is the origin story of Walt Disney, set in an old mental hospital, where various heroes and princesses are locked up and all have differing levels of psychosis, delusions or other problems. They are all looked after by the warden. Movie title, Mr. Disney, who exploits them and sells their stories to the nations as children's stories and fairy tales. Belle, bestiality, Aurora, heroin addict, Snow White, multiple personalities, Seven Dwarfs, Ariel, lost her legs in an accident at sea, and is convinced if she can just get back to the ocean she could make a deal with the monster that took them to get them back. There were more, but I can't remember them all right now. Edit. Forgot about this post. Thanks for the silver and all of the follow-up comments. It has been awesome to see more ideas come out. Ratatouille. Only it takes place in a maximum security prison. Alfredo Linguini is serving hard time after working for years as a hitman for the mob. He meets Remy when he starts working in the kitchen and together they do their best to try and make the itty meals for the prisoners a little bit better. A Bug's Life. Only instead it's about a colony of ants that survived a nuclear holocaust that completely wiped out humans and their struggle in the wasteland to survive. They introduce shock collars for predators in Zootopia 2. Monsters Incorporated. That's it. Interdimensional horrors are consistently breaking through to our plane of existence. Where are these portals? In the bedrooms of children. Why are they doing this? To instill terror into the lives into the most vulnerable amongst us. Turn the perspective from the view of the monsters to the view of the humans and it's a straight up horror movie. The short about the old man that plays himself in chess finishes the match to wake up in an insane asylum where he has been beef for the last 50 years. The movie then progresses as a mad doctor uses treatments to cure the man but ultimately kills him. The entire film uses classical chess theories to progress the battle between the old man and the staff until he is finally checkmated. Skynet finally comes online, and Wallace turns into a murderous version of Johnny 5, crushing people into meat cubes. Directive: kill. Ooh up. Ratatouille, but it's the Black Plague and all the humans die. Kinda surprised nobody mentioned this, but if the shock collar plotline was kept in Zootopia it would not have been PG. Down. So you know how Up opens with what is clearly a miscarriage? Imagine a prequel revolving around the inevitable depression, and their journey for Carl to truly understand it, and together to rediscover how to love life despite its adversity. Monsters Incorporated: when monsters are discovered they kidnap, kill the family, and there is an evil scream business with the same goal of making kids fear, but they don't care about hurting and torturing them. Woody lives up to his name and becomes a porn star with Bo Peep's sheep. WALL-E: I want Wall-E and Eve take over all that's left of humans and go out in universe to capture and wipe out all the habitable planets who are ruining the universe. You can say I want Pixar's version of Brainiac, Superman supervillain. All the toys from Toy Story are made and raised in China and are not exactly alive, but they're actually advanced Chinese spying devices used to extract information from Andy's household because his parents are Interpol agents trying to fight for human rights, and the story ends with Andy and his family being sent to internment camps never to be seen again. Their organs, however, will be seen again in another movie like Ratatouille and some dish that the struggling Gusto's restaurant bought on the black market as high quality pork. However, because the health inspector discovers that since not only illegal ingredients are being used in the restaurant, but human meat nonetheless, Gusto's restaurant gains widespread infamy, is forced to shut down, and its now former employees will spend the rest of their lives unemployed and may resort to crime because of all the negative press they received. The toys are welcomed as national heroes for their efforts in thwarting Interpol and by extension the UN, and later get promoted to advanced killing devices and help create a world fueled by rapid unchecked industrialism, destroying any government or entity that opposes the Chinese, and cooperating American companies' expansion into polluting however they want with no regulation, eventually resulting in the world we see in WALL-E. This all happened because some kid wanted to play with toys that he could talk to. Finding Nemo, but they never find Nemo, and the whole thing becomes about how Dory and Marlin fall in and out of love. Sort of like El Ventura by Antonioni. Monsters for Real: we're in a utopian monsterland. Superstar monsters are pushed to kill their victims to get maximum premium scream out of them. When one kid gets away, the monsters have to hunt it down, become friends with her in the process, and have to kill her in the end to maintain the status quo. No one knows why or why Ellie died in Up. Carl is suspect number 1 though. After it's discovered he took out insurance on her life. The bad dinosaur, like the good dinosaur, except they all act like real dinosaurs and not people. Lots and lots of blood. Zootopia: but years in the future, Judy's fame has faded and she's now a crooked detective with deep mob connections. There is a whole seedy underworld of weird sex clubs and drugs. The con artist Fox is trying to put her back on the straight and narrow as they investigate a serial killer. What happened to the rest of the humans that didn't show up in WALL-E? The ones stuck on an inhabitable Earth and the ones whose ships died or had robots that successfully overthrew them. Up: the house violently crashes to land before they reach their destination, killing the old man on impact. Russell believes he can survive on his wilderness explorer skills alone. However, only lasts for days before facing starvation. Reluctantly, he returns to the crash site to cannibalize the old man's rapidly decaying body. Russell knows he will not last for long without another food source, so he pushes on into the jungle beyond the crash site. He contracts malaria and descends into madness. Russell dies alone in the jungle, his putrid remains quickly swallowed up by the vegetation and consumed by the detritus eaters. The crash site is found 12 years later by a logging crew. The only thing the media focuses on is the signs of gnawing by childlike teeth on the old man's skeletal remains. Requests to posthumously award Russell the assisting the elderly badge are largely ignored, and he is remembered as a man-eating monster. Up: but Ellie was actually murdered and Carl goes looking for the murderer only to be overwrought and almost throwing himself over a waterfall. He is stricken with news from Doug that Carl is in fact the murderer. Inside Out: from the perspective of being inside a sociopathic individual like, say, Dexter, only instead of emotions, as said, it's more like impulses, logic, urges, artistic, logic, voiced by someone who sounds like Anthony Hopkins, is the one who is always cool and collected, urges wants to go off the leash. You get the picture. The question isn't how to keep him from killing, it's how to keep him from getting caught killing. A Bug's Life from the perspective of a colony of maggots living inside and eating a dead body. After his wife dies from a miscarriage, young Cole hears rumors about an Inca burial site in Paradise Falls, where you can sacrifice a virgin to resurrect a deceased loved one. Still heartbroken from the death of his beloved Ellie, he sees a chance of reuniting with her once little Russell knocks on his door. He kidnaps Russell and begins his journey on the way to said burial site in Paradise Falls. As there is no proof for resurrection, he grapples with the thought that he is about to kill an innocent child, just for the small chance of seeing his wife again. Adult Toy Story. They've seen Summit. An illegal energy business in the Monsters, Incorporated universe, where they discover that the human world is not toxic. They then kidnap children and torture them. Toys. UNICEF. The toys are donated to UNICEF and are given to children in a war zone. They spend the movie trying to keep the children alive. They are not always successful. They discover that they don't have to remain hidden as nobody will believe anything the children say as it's assumed their stories are a coping mechanism. Anyway, all the toys wind up in a refugee camp where the neighboring country will not let the people in. They eventually reunite just as a typhus epidemic whips out the last of those they were sworn to protect. They then wander into a minefield in an effort to head to the great toy box in the sky. Snow White is imprisoned by the Queen and tortured to make her ugly, and she goes delirious and makes up these 7 imaginary friends to keep her company. Eventually the Queen can't stand that Snow White is still the fairest because beauty comes from the inside. So she cuts Snow White's heart out and eats it in hope to absorb the pureness of Snow White's heart. I know it's not Pixar though, sorry. Finding Nemo. The plot is the same but the big fish that eat all the eggs at the begin is the same Marlin. And then he seeks his son Nemo only to eat him. Wall-E malfunctions. Program error. Directive is to revitalize planet Earth. Requires water. Human blood is mostly water. Planet Earth requires human blood. A movie about monsters that harness the screams of terrified children and use it to power their cities. Ratatouille like being John Malkovich where Colette and Remy are in love and just using Linguini's body for sex. Toy Story in the really world where the toys are alive but act like they're characters who would know they are toys but only because that's their character. Also, of course a 6 Toy Story. Big Hero 6 Aunt is Home Alone. A Toy Story spin-off where a toy is a serial killer leaving no standard evidence, fingerprints, hair, DNA, etc. behind so the human cops are at a loss to do anything about these mysterious slayings. So it's up to the toys to track down and bring to justice the killer toy. Bug's Life. All the insects are killed by an exterminator. Brave, Merida grows up into young adult, realizes there are serious social and political consequences if she doesn't get married, and ends up marrying someone she doesn't love for alliance reasons. Bayo. Short, the mother actually did eat a sentient dumpling and spends the rest of her life haunted by her actions. Toy Story series. The toys become increasingly alarmed as many child opt for virtual games and entertainment and play less and less with physical toy objects. Wreck-It Ralph's title would remain same MO. Ernesto's guitar in Coco is actually stuffed full of drugs about to be smuggled over the border. When Miguel steals it, he's tracked down by the cartel and executed. The rest of the movie is him slowly losing his memory in a surreal adventure while also realizing he can never actually leave the land of the dead. The toys from Toy Story keep Andy and his family prisoner in a sort of playmate concentration camp. Under duress they force him to play with them. Upon Andy becoming too old, the toys no longer get the endorphin rush that fulfills their purpose. They set up a human farm mill, forcing the adults to breed to produce new children. Children who know nothing but playtime with Woody and Buzz. As children get older, they are either eaten or added to the human farm. Similar scenarios have occurred throughout the world and the entire human race has been enslaved. It's so much a plot, but how Mr. Incredible would deal with the eventual deaths of all his family. The son would obviously either speed himself to death or break something and become a drug addict due to not being able to use his powers. The daughter will die invisible and she won't be discovered until someone puts their hand in her rot. And the wife, Mr. Incredible, will just wake up next to a puddle one day. And right as Mr. Incredible is about to die, he'll look into the eyes of Jack knowing that his youngest will live a long time. Moana is all grown up, a queen happily leading her people, when the colonizers' armada of ships arrive. A hybrid of Pixar and Disney, Toy Story 3.5. Andy goes to college and realizes his toys are alive. Andy has no friends because he tells everyone his toys talk to him. Everyone makes fun of him while walking through the college commons. His roommate won't even sleep in the same room because he is creeped out by Andy's toys. Especially when Andy studies for Astronomy 101 with Buzz. Andy becomes an outcast and depressed because nobody believes him. Meanwhile, a boy named Christopher Robin also has no friends at the same college because he is constantly talking to his Pooh Bear. Likewise, he is constantly mocked while going class to class. Christopher Robin's roommate is especially creeped out because Christopher constantly is talking to have a half-naked bear whose nose is sticky with honey. Christopher Robin and Andy meet at a complimentary group counseling session offered by undergrad counseling students. Even the counselors don't believe them and laugh. Christopher Robin and Andy become lovers and are happy. Andy brings Christopher Robin home for Thanksgiving because England is too far and expensive for Christopher. Andy's mom finds out that Andy is gay and shames him. Andy and Christopher have to stay in a motel for Thanksgiving. We wait 4 years for the following sequel. Andy killed himself with Slinker and Christopher Robin contemplates life.